Artillery shells rained down on Kiev the night before. In another corner of the sky, Rome, world leaders were gathering, not just to discuss money, but the future of a bleeding country, Ukraine. More than 10 billion euros have been pledged, but beyond the numbers there is hope, a signal of international solidarity, a message sent to Moscow and also to Washington.
Together, at today's conference, we have made commitments totaling over 10 billion euros.
July 10th, Ukraine Recovery Summit 2025, an international conference in Rome, Italy, on Ukraine's economic reconstruction pledged over 10 billion euros, 11.7 billion USD for Ukraine. Of this, the European Commission EC committed 2.3 billion euros. The conference, attended by political leaders, including Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, took place amid the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. This is the fourth conference since the conflict erupted in February 2022 and primarily aims to mobilize international support for Ukraine's reconstruction process. Previous conferences were held in Switzerland 2022, the UK 2023, and Germany 2024. The funds raised will be used to invest in rebuilding homes, rebuilding hospitals, reviving businesses, and ensuring energy supply.
We also want to work with Ukraine to avoid that those entities who help the Russian war machine will benefit from the reconstruction. Because whether we like it or not, what happens in Ukraine affects each and every one of us. I think that is why we should be proud of the result we are all achieving together today. Nations, international organizations, financial institutions, local authorities, the business sector, civil society. Together, at today's conference, we have made commitments totaling over 10 billion euros.
Russia has also prepared for this meeting. Just last night, they launched another massive attack on Ukraine, mainly targeting our capital, Kyiv. The attack involved Russian, Iranian Shahid drones. These drones have been heavily upgraded to cause more destruction and to be harder to shoot down. Ukrainians now face attacks by hundreds of these drones every single night. And this is pure terrorism. And I ask you to support the Recovery Coalition and help define specific financing mechanisms. We must clearly agree that frozen Russian assets should go toward Ukraine's recovery. Not only the income from these assets, but the assets themselves must be used and much more actively than they are now to help save lives. And we also need a clear system for reconstruction, a special recovery fund, and financing at different levels for Ukraine's national budget and for local communities. And we are very, very open.
Hey, good. Really good. Oh, you brought your crew. Sure. How are you? Pretty good. Hi. How are you doing today? All right. Did you take my advice and press it to him? Of course, sir. Good.
On the eve of the Ukraine Recovery Conference, URC, the meeting between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine Keith Kellogg took place in Rome on July 9, aimed at discussing several important issues such as strengthening the air defense system, cooperation in weapons production, and intensifying sanctions against Russia. President Zelensky expressed gratitude for the U.S. presence and support at the conference, while affirming Ukraine's full support for the peace initiatives of President Donald Trump. The two sides reportedly discussed measures to enhance air defense capabilities, joint weapons production between the two countries, and steps to tighten economic sanctions on Russia.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sir, very sorry to hear about that attack last night.
Thank you so much. Not the first one, not the last case, but it was very big.
It is important that after very constructive and very positive talks with U.S. President Donald Trump, we have all the necessary political signals about the resumption of aid supplies. Now, at the team level, we are working to ensure that everything reaches Ukraine on time.
Also took part on behalf of the United States. It's the first time.
And today, there was such a moment. You yourself mentioned the American side. I think this is a signal from President Trump, the presence of General Keith Kellogg, special Ukraine envoy, and U.S. senators. This is a positive signal. I am very happy with this signal. This is real unity.
Підсумувати, якщо можна дуже коротко, перший день конференції.
I am looking forward to our meeting with our American colleagues on sanctions. I think we are very close. We expect a decision today, it sounded like, regarding the 18th package. We understand why there is a pause, and we understand that the pause will be lifted. At least Europe is taking on these obligations.
Володимир Горбяний, журналіст Bloomberg. Мене запитання щодо
Changes will be made to the ambassador to the U.S. I am grateful to Oksana Markarova, current Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S. If I decide, and it will be in the near future, to represent Ukraine in the United States of America, that is our key ambassador. If I decide it will be Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, this will certainly affect serious reshuffles in the Ukrainian government. We worked very substantively today with the issue of financing in detail. Financing for drones, primarily interceptor drones and everything else needed to intercept Russian strikes, and everything needed for our long-range capabilities.
Positive political signals about the renewal of
We discussed with partners the possibility of purchasing in Europe and in the United States of America, primarily the necessary packages with appropriate weapons. We have given details about this package to our friends we hope for support. In particular, these are air defense systems and missiles for Patriots, Patriot systems, and other systems. Also artillery and other weapons that can strengthen the Ukrainian army. What is happening is the following. We have dates, and there is an understanding what will reach Ukraine on which specific dates.
military shipment and aid. What's
We have a positive dialogue with President Trump regarding Patriot systems. My request is for 10 Patriot systems and the corresponding amount of missiles for these systems. Germany is ready to pay for 2 systems. I have agreements with them. Norway is ready to pay. I have bilateral agreements with the Prime Minister for 1 system. When we get a clear answer from the manufacturer and from the United States regarding various options for dates, we certainly understand the cost. Then other European partners will join in.
On the same day, U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, stated that rebuilding Ukraine after the war would be a massive but vital task, and that it would have an impact across the entire European continent.
The destruction caused by the war is also why the United States is partnering with Ukraine to see a full restoration of this nation following a peace settlement. The United States recognizes that rebuilding Ukraine will be an enormous yet critical task that will have implications on the broader European region. We also recognize that the reconstruction of Ukraine goes well beyond just rebuilding the physical infrastructure of Ukraine, as it entails addressing the social and economic impacts of the war as well. This includes safely bringing back all Ukrainian refugees, securing the return of all illegally kidnapped Ukrainian children, ensuring that veterans of Ukraine's armed forces are given the proper care for their rehabilitation back into Ukrainian society, and undergoing a comprehensive demining operation to ensure safety for all Ukrainians in the future. On the economic side, future investments into Ukraine depend on a stable security situation. Investors need confidence, and investors need assurance that any peace deal reached will provide long-term security. That is why our efforts to secure peace are not set on just getting to a temporary ceasefire, but is instead focused on reaching a comprehensive and permanent peace settlement.
Berlin has been the second largest supplier of weapons to Kiev since the Ukraine conflict escalated in February 2022, following only the United States. Russia has repeatedly condemned Western arms supplies, arguing that they do not alter the overall dynamics of the conflict, but merely prolong the bloodshed and risk further escalation. Speaking at the German parliament on July 9, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz declared that diplomatic measures have been exhausted regarding the conflict, but he would aim to prevent a Russian victory. At the same time, Merz demanded that Russia compensate for the damages it has caused in Ukraine, which he estimated to be around 500 billion euros.
We estimate the property damage to be around 500 billion euros. Russia must pay for this damage. Until this has happened, Russia must not and will not have access to the frozen Russian assets. I would also like to say that the freeze will remain in place. We are ready to acquire additional platform systems from the United States in order to make them available to Ukraine. The two ministers, Foreign Minister Wadifol and Defense Minister Pistorius, are coordinating with our partners to mobilize additional aid.
He's on his way now. As of this week, he's on his way.
I spoke to President Trump about this last Thursday and also asked him to deliver these systems. The Americans need some of them themselves, but they also have a lot of them. The defense ministers are currently negotiating this. It has not yet been finalized whether a delivery will be made.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz also welcomed the launch of a European fund aimed at mobilizing private investment for Ukraine's reconstruction. This is also why Germany, France, Italy, Poland, together with the European Investment Bank and the European Commission, jointly launched the European Flagship Fund for Ukraine's reconstruction.
Now, Germany is the largest donor to the Ukraine Energy Support Fund and will continue to support the stabilization and reconstruction of Ukraine's energy system. Economic growth requires freedom for the private sector to flourish. This is particularly important in the case of Ukraine because the enormous cost of reconstruction cannot be financed through public funds alone. This is why you, Volodymyr, and I, when we met in Berlin a few weeks ago, met German companies which are active in Ukraine. What I can report back from that meeting is the enormous interest of private businesses in participating in Ukraine's reconstruction. Together today for the Ukraine recovery. These measures underline our confidence in Ukraine's future. And here is a second lever able to turn Ukraine's reconstruction into the economic miracle we all hope to see. That lever is Ukraine's successful European integration. To be very clear on this, we fully support Ukraine on its path to EU membership. I urgently ask Slovakia and its Prime Minister to give up the resistance and to make the way free for package number 18 within the European Union. In finalizing, I have two messages. The one goes to Moscow and to President Putin. The message is quite simple. We will not give up. And dear friends, my second message goes to Washington, D.C. and to President Donald Trump. Stay with us and stay with the Europeans. We are on the same page, and we are looking for a stable political order in this world. We are both, the Americans and the Europeans, are part of with us. Stay with us on this side and on this page of our common history. Many thanks, dear colleagues.
The conference in Rome marks a significant turning point in the efforts to rebuild Ukraine. The over 10 billion euros pledged is not only a resource, but also a clear demonstration of the West's stance. As the conflict shows no signs of abating, the recovery process must still be advanced. Ukraine is entering a critical phase where every decision leaves a lasting impact.